Hey everyone, it's Jamie and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to take a moment to talk about the new Sims 4 redesign that just came out. First, I also just want to apologize. Sorry I haven't really uploaded that much recently. I know I usually try to push out a few videos per week. I have been very kind of busy with work, plus also I just have been obsessing over the Phantom of the Opera again. My love for it was revitalized recently and it's been a problem. Anyways, so before we get started, I also just want to quickly put a little disclaimer. I did go to art school. I have an art degree. I was not a graphic designer. However, part of the first year program at my school is you had to take design classes as well as all design principles from across all of the different mediums of art. Kind of are the same or very related. A lot of the things that graphic designers think about, also painters, sculptors, they all have to think about. They just have to think about it in different ways. It's kind of a little too complicated to get into here. Even though I was a fine arts major, I do think I have an eye for design and can critique design, as well as when we go into this, I'm going to talk about some of the things I would have done differently. So let's start off with the logo. So the logo, to begin with, I don't hate this. I don't love it though, and I'm gonna get into that. So the plumb bob, to begin with, I really like the new plumb bob. And the reason for this is I think the old plumb bob was nice. I didn't hate it by any means. I never looked at it. I was like, that's awful. But with this new plumb bob, I think it really, as a logo, as a design element, works a lot better than the old one. And that's because when you're thinking about designs and you're thinking about logos, usually more simplified and more graphic approaches work better. A good example of this is when you look at the Apple logos over the years. The original Apple logo was a very beautiful illustration, but way too complex for a logo. However, as the years went on, Apple simplified and they've had many different iterations of kind of like the same mold. And that has really worked. I think the Apple logo is generally kind of accepted as a good logo. It's, safe. It really gets across, what the company's name is. It's memorable. So, it was a good job, Apple. But like I said, their original design was not, as an illustration, beautiful, but as a design, as a logo, not good. And that's where I kind of really like this plumb bob. I think the last plumb bob was really, it looked really good as this 3D kind of like object that exists and is believable to exist. However, because of that, how well it was rendered, it doesn't really work too well as a graphic image, as a design. And when you look at the new plumb bob, because it's so much more graphic, has much harder lines, it doesn't have as many gradients, as many gradations, as many values across the whole thing, it stands out a lot more. It's a lot stronger. It just works better. It works more effectively as a logo. Of course, there are some issues. I do think it might be a little too complicated. I definitely think they could have simplified it more. With that said, though, I still really like the new plumb bob. I was very happy when I first heard they were redesigning the plumb bob. I was like, oh, yikes. And then when they came out with this, I was like, you know what? That actually works. I think, however, as a stagnant image, I like it, but I like it a lot better. I think it looks a lot better, works 100 times better when it's in motion. So when you're at on the loading screen and it's spinning, I am like, wow, that is actually amazing. So good job to the Sims team. I do wish as a stagnant image that the plumb bob looked a little bit better. Like I said, I think it's just a little too busy. Could be simplified more. Essentially, that was the issue with the first one. Is that in the process of making this rendered, believable plumb bob that exists in, in real time or whatever, it doesn't work well as a design element. But here it works really well. Like I said, me personally, I probably would have simplified it just a little bit more. but also when it moves, oh, like it makes it so much more work. Like it makes all of my complaints go away when I see it actually moving. I think that's a beautiful design element, and the fact that they thought about how it would look while it's moving and how that would affect the design elements they made really, to me, feels like it speaks to me that every other decision they made was well thought out. Even if I don't like some of the decisions they've made, I'm like, they were thinking about it though. With that said, something I don't like the blue of The Sims 4. There's just something about that blue, and I understand there's people who are more photosensitive, more sensitive to certain colors, who they say that like this color actually hurts them. It doesn't hurt me. I actually, like this blue. I don't think it works well as the logo, and maybe with the logo as I'm looking out, maybe I personally would have made the plumb bob a little bit bigger. I think that's an issue I had with like the past Sims 4 logo too. Is, I don't know, the plumb bob should just be a little bigger, like just a little. The next thing I wanted to do is talk about the main menu. And even before the main menu, when you first load up the game, and this is that animation of the Sims title spinning around and stuff, that's really nice. I really like that. I'm kind of putting that in with main menu instead of loading screens, because the way it leads to the main menu, even though you have a loading screen in between. We'll get to loading screens. I have a few opinions. But when we get to the main menu, from a design element, I actually kind of like this. I really like how the videos are incorporated, because I know in the past they've tried to incorporate buying other packs and incorporated the videos. I just don't think it was good. Here I like it. So one issue I do have with it, it's just an issue I think I've had with The Sims 4 in general, is how whenever they do a big patch like this, or a new update, or a new pack comes out, they usually, on the main screen, the home screen, they'll have an image or a still. They're usually not stills, because there's usually some kind of animated quality that I do like, of the newest pack or the newest update. And it's a way, I think, to get you excited, maybe if you don't own the pack, to buy it. And while I like the idea of it, I just don't think it's ever really worked out well. It just always feels so out of place, and I think part of it is because the way the screen is set up, and it's that white background, you inherently have to remove a lot of the background, a lot of the context image of the scene or whatever that you're showing from the new pack, and it makes it feel very isolated and weird, and in my opinion almost a little more distant than I think they want. However, this is just a personal preference. I've never heard anyone else complain about this, so it could just be me. I just know for me personally, I think a lot about how images engage with the artist, or how images engage with the audience, and that's just because as an artist, as a painter, that's literally all I do. So for me, it just feels a little distant, a little removed. It's always felt like that, so for me to rip this new home screen apart for that is a little unfair. Another thing I want to talk about, this is one I've heard a lot about, is I know a lot of people are complaining about the different, or how they changed the expansion pack, game pack, and stuff pack, and free stuff, and how it used to be is they used to be color coordinated for pack specific. There were colors that were specifically Get Famous, specifically Strangerville, and while on one hand I did like that individuality, I think it lacked cohesion. So I actually do enjoy this, where they have a specific color for expansion, game, and stuff. And I'm not mad that it has that kind of like bluish green, and then blue, and then that green. I know some people are complaining, saying they don't think that there's a big enough difference between expansion pack and game pack color. Maybe it's just because I have a more trained eye when it comes to color. When I was in school, my work was very color related. Not to like toot my own horn, I did get a lot of awards for my color work, so I think just personally I'm a little bit more sensitive to color and color shifts. So maybe that's why, to me, I see I don't really see them as that similar. So maybe it could just, once again, I understand that could just be me and my more like adept eyes to color and my work with color. So I'm willing to say anyone who has that critique being valid, because another aspect here to think about is, like, yes, me as an artist, as a designer, I look at that and I go, oh yeah, but they're not making this for artists and designers, they're making this for everyone. So I can see the critique in it being not accessible enough in that way. Not everyone has art eyes. Not everyone looks at the color blue and sees all the other colors in there to make up that specific shade. Really like the color scheme going on here on the main menu. I know some people don't, and I think that's just because you know, when I look at blue, I don't just see blue, I see all the other colors to make up that specific shade of blue, and then I see that being pulled around in the menu. I bring up blue specifically because there's a lot of blue here. Like I said, I generally like the format of it, of this new main menu. I think the main problem with it, though, because there is a problem that has to be addressed, it doesn't feel like a game. In some ways, it almost feels more like a movie menu to me. Like, I don't know if DVDs still have those main menus. I don't own DVDs anymore. After it goes through all the terrible trailers and then it gets to it and you pick movie or extras or scene. That's what this kind of reminds me of, and I don't know why they did this. I don't like that the start menu is on the right. I don't know why it's on the left. I can understand, so here in the Western world, we read left to right, so I can understand why on the left they would want to put those new videos to kind of like boost those packs. Like, oh, if you don't own it, watch the trailer, and oh, if you've been thinking about it, now it's here in your face all the time. And yeah, I get it from a marketing standpoint. Yes, on the left, put your links, put your videos, put all the expansion packs so you can see the ones you own, you don't own. And then on the right, which, because of the way we read here in the Western world, we'll get to that last. So, I get why they did it. I don't like it, though. And then I understand why they set up the expansion pack and game pack, like, stuff in that format. To me, what it feels like is what they're doing is they're trying to create more space, because they're trying to emphasize, because they've mentioned this in the stream, is that The Sims 4 is alive well and has many more years to come. So maybe that's what they're trying to show. Look at all the space we could still fill. And I'm like, okay. It's still ugly. With that said, though, I've never really loved the home screen for the Sims games. Like the Sims 1, Sims 2, Sims 3, I think those are ugly. I understand it also. Those, I think, were more reflective of common home screens for video games at the time, which, you know, younger me didn't really play video games, and partially because I thought that was ugly. But and then even the old Sims 4 loading screen, like the one before this, I didn't really love it. And I think, for one, all the white. I know there's some people who say white uses more energy. I've also have had people tell me that that's not true. So I'm not going to sit here and say that using less white means less energy. I didn't study science. Probably should have. But, so, and like I said, I've heard that before. I've heard people say, oh, when you switch your phone to night mode or websites to the dark screen, it uses less energy. And I don't know if that's true. I know personally I do that anyways, for two reasons. One, aesthetic. I think too much white for certain websites is bad. For an art website, it makes sense, because you want the white to contrast the colors and make the colors look bigger and better. Here, though, in this example on the Sims page, or the Sims game, I think there's too much white. I think it's very overbearing. It kind of feels empty. Now let's talk about the loading screen. And the loading screen is a weird one. Like I mentioned earlier, I love the Plumb Bob spinning on the loading screen. I think the new Plumb Bob looks great. I don't know how else to, I don't know how many times I have to say that. And I don't want to keep repeating myself, but I love how the Plumb Bob looks when spinning. The blue is interesting. Once again, I kind of brought this up earlier when I was talking about the logo. I don't really love the blue. It's not a bad blue. And it almost is doing the same thing the white did, where there's just too much of it. At least on the old background, the white had a kind of like a pattern to it that you could like vaguely see that, like, you know, if you weren't paying attention, you might miss. But if you were like, oh, look. However, I also don't need my loading screens to be super interesting. I know some people disagree. They're like, oh, especially because The Sims 4 does have a lot of loading screens. And some people are like, oh, I want it to be interesting. But the more interesting it's going to be, probably the longer it's going to take to load. So, I definitely would take simplified, faster, over complex and beautiful in this part. Once again, I know a lot of people are saying that the blue, for especially photo, for people who are photo sensitive, color sensitive, sensitive to certain light waves, that the blue hurts them. For me personally, because I'm not one of those people, it doesn't hurt me, but I can definitely like sympathize with that, and I can be like, yeah, maybe The Sims 4 can change it. And I know I saw an article the other day saying The Sims team is gonna change it because they do feel bad that was definitely like an overstep. So now let's move on to the cover art. So the brand new cover art for the base game, I really like. I love the blue background. I know some people, if they feel like it doesn't fit in, I think with the game Redesign as a concept, like there's a lot of blues being introduced that I think on that level it works. I also really like the Sims logo white instead of blue. I think that looks a lot better. Also, I just love this base game image. It shows some of the new items we got. I also just like looking at all the new characters. And then moving on to the pack covers in general. So, this is another one I've heard some people complaining about. And overall, I actually really like how they look. I do agree. Someone pointed, I forget who. Was it Deligracy? It may have been Deligracy, who pointed out that they kind of look like textbooks, which that's not what I picked up on right away until it was pointed out. I do agree they do kind of have like a textbook feel, but overall I really like them. I, once again, can understand that if you're not trained to be looking at color the way artists are, that you're not really going to see the difference between the expansion and the Stranger Pack blue, or Stranger Pack, oh my god, you're not going to notice the difference between the blue between the expansion pack and the game pack. But on the flip side, it literally says expansion pack and game pack. So, I completely agree that if you need the text to explain your design your design decisions, then maybe the design needs to be reworked. So I can understand that critique there. A big part of design is trying to get across a message without words. So, did the Sims team fail here? Maybe. I'm not going to call it a full fail. I'd say it's kind of like if I were to give this a grade, it wouldn't be an A. At the highest, depending how well I was feeling, a B-. Alright, so let's talk about what this means for The Sims 4, The Sims franchise, and just moving forward in general. So in the stream, it was discussed how The main reason for The Sims rebranding was to let the world know that The Sims 4 was still alive, well, and had many years to come. Meaning that The Sims 4 is not slowing down anytime soon. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.